Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning in to another real estate market update. Today we are hanging out at another one of our incredible listings with the team from MCD Homes here in the Tall Line neighborhood. And for this market update, we're going to do things a little bit differently. I am joined by Eric Saramick. He is our Director for Marketing and Operations with the McGlone Property Group. And Eric, what are we doing here?
Today we're going to be looking at the 2025 market here in Bend and what we expect to see regarding real estate, covering all those hot topics that you've seen covered nationally, but zeroing it on our market here in the Central Oregon area.
Awesome. Yeah, we took a look at a lot of the more popular forecasts out there, from Realtor.com to Fannie Mae to Zillow and Redfin, and we're just going to talk about kind of their key talking points and whether or not we'll see that, what we think will happen here in Bend. So let's go ahead and get started.
So one of the hot topics out there right now is value of your home. And a lot of the national predictions are showing 2.6 to 4% value increase in properties over the next year. What are you expecting to see here in Bend and Central Oregon?
Yeah. Well, I think here what we've noticed, I mean, we kind of wrapped up 2024 on a little bit of a softer note, right? You know, as we headed into the election, we really saw the market take a breather and kind of cool off. Right. And then post-election, you know, there was quite a bit of a rally, I would say, compared to what we saw towards the rest of the second half of last year. And it really kind of developed into a tale of two stories, right? Post-election, all of a sudden on our side, anecdotally, we really started to see the high end of the market take off a little bit, where the low end wasn't quite keeping up. It was kind of lagging behind a little bit. And I think when we look at where we're positioned right now, I think we'll see that same sort of tale of two stories continue into 2025. So I think, you know, those that have high amounts of equity in their homes and those that are very well capitalized, I think are going to be out there making moves, listing properties and selling. And I think that's probably going to skew, you know, a little bit more towards above the median sales price here in Bend. So I think that alone in itself could lead to some upward pressure on price. We think that, you know, rates are going to stay roughly around that 7% range as we go through the entire year, you know, maybe bounce around a little bit. So I don't know if, you know, those that are really reliant on hitting a target monthly payment without a lot of flexibility in their budgets, you know, I think it's going to be a little bit rougher on them. So, you know, and then the other thing that's been very interesting to see, I mean, we're filming this right here at the beginning of, you know, we're on January 16th, January 17th. And we've already seen the high-end market in Bend since the beginning of the year really take off. And we've actually seen some signs that the lower end is starting to follow suit. This is typically a time of the year where we have incredibly low inventories, especially fresh new inventory. So we typically see the market take off a little bit at this time. But I say with what we've seen so far this year, I do think we're going to outperform what we saw in 2024. We've been roughly range bound now on the median price and average price for a home in Bend for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, ever since we saw interest rates kind of shoot up.
Sure.
I think there's a lot of pent up demand. So, you know, I would probably think that we're going to see, you know, some small amounts of appreciation as we go into this year, but more so, I think, kind of on the, you know, above the median rather than, you know, below.
Okay. So just kind of touching on that again, we did briefly touch on rates, right? That's still going to be driving affordability with monthly payments on the median and below, but then we're seeing more movement in the higher end. You're still expecting to see prices continue to grow on both areas.
Yeah, I think a little bit, but I feel a little bit more bullish on that higher end, you know, kind of the $1 million plus market.
Sure.
And that just is a function of rates and affordability, right?
Yeah. And what was it you were telling me the other day about there were 4 properties that were going pending on the...
Yeah, I think, a couple of good examples, right? So where we're seeing the market go right now, you know, we're sitting here in Tall Line, and these are, you know, it's been fairly quiet in this community in general over the last quarter of 2024, and we've taken 3 offers on properties in the last week, right? And that's a huge shift from where we were, you know, back last summer and kind of going through the fall. And on the flip side, you know, we've had buyers, you know, a lot of buyer calls picking up, and we've had buyers coming to the market looking for homes, and in one case, you know, we sat down with some buyers that were kind of shopping in more of that median price point range, and they had a list of homes that they shared with us when we first sat down with him, and we were surprised to see that within a few days, all of the homes that were on that list were sold. So once again, even on that lower end or kind of median and below, I would say, well-priced homes, we're definitely going to see things move quickly there. But I just feel like in terms of how much room there is to move up, compared to what you're seeing that national forecast where some of the higher forecasts are expecting a 4% appreciation year over year.
Right.
I kind of feel like we might be on the lower side of that, just because of a little bit of affordability and just with rates holding it where they're at.
Right.
So.
Now, if you are a buyer right now, I know there's your classic resale market out there, which we're expecting to see an increase from the previous year. Correct?
Yeah. In fact, when we talk about inventory levels, and this is something that I think a lot of these forecasts talk about as well, we actually saw a fairly healthy uptick in new listings to market in 2024. So we were probably up somewhere around 12 to 13% in new listing activity compared to 2023. But I think what's important for people to understand is that is still near a 30-year low in inventory. And when that translates over to sales units, we've seen a similar story, right? So I was taking a look at sales units, and if we were to pull the number of homes that sold last year and we were to compare it to the average year, prior to the pandemic, so let's say 2014 to 2019, last year's unit sales were roughly down 30% to what we typically saw pre-pandemic. So inventories at these historic lows, sales volumes are at these historic lows. And so, I think there's a natural churn in the market that almost needs to occur just from, life events that occur. Plus there's a lot of folks that just want to upgrade homes and want to get into a new home, or renters that are looking to get into homes. And I think we're going on this is really the start of our fourth year where we've seen rates really high, and I think that just that a little bit more level setting, that rates, folks knowing that rates are going to be high over the next year, or elevated I should say, compared to what we saw
Sure.
Prior to the pandemic, that there will naturally be more buyers out this year on the market, and we will also see inventories increase a little bit.
So then for those buyers, as we kind of touched on, you do have your resale market, but then there's a lot of new construction and new projects going on.
Yeah.
What are some of those things that you would be keeping your eye on, whether it's on the Westside or Eastside, that are starting to crop up as other opportunities that buyers might not be aware of yet?
Yeah, I think when we look at the east side, the one thing that's pretty interesting to me is kind of how the southeast is shaping up right now here in Bend. I feel like if we look over the last 5 years or so, the city has, the community, the city developers have put a lot of energy into southeast, right? So, a lot of that kicked off with the park that they opened up. Alpenglow Park.
Caldera High School.
Punching, taking Murphy and punching it over the railroad tracks. And then, last year, one of the big things that we saw, actually really over the last 2 years, was, Polish Homes started their Easton project out there, which is going to be, several hundred homes, plus apartments, plus potentially some commercial. Now this year in 2024, headed into 2025, we've got the new Deschutes Public Library going in over there. And then right behind there, you have Stevens Ranch, which is going to be another, several hundred home sites out there that are coming out of the ground at a pretty rapid pace. I think you've got Stonebridge building out there at the moment. And you also have, I believe, D.R. Horton's building out there. So there's a lot of energy, I feel like, going into that southeast. I think there's, with the development of those neighborhoods, the addition of some of these amenities that we're talking about, I think it will create opportunities for retail businesses out there as well. So that's one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Sure. It will be interesting how it plays out between, Easton and Stevens Ranch. That's a lot of inventory on the market. We're probably looking close to 1,000 homes, I would guess, between those two developments. And the other thing that also was exciting, I think, about that particular quadrant of town is Behind Stevens Ranch, you're going to have the Stevens Road Track project, which is the affordable housing project that the city of Bend has been working with the state on. That's still another couple of years down the road, but it's really exciting to see some attention going in there. It's exciting to see Stevens Ranch get started because that will lead, I believe that will lead to further progress on the more affordable housing section of it. So that's one area I'm keeping an eye on when it comes to, I guess, the city of Bend and growth and new construction. When we look kind of more on the northeast side, we still have quite a few homes in Petrosa that Polish will be building out.
Of course.
You're starting to see some other small developments pop up kind of out in that same northeast quadrant as more of that land that was annexed into the city back during the last UGB expansion gets developed. One of the things I think everyone's kind of looking for out there is, when and how will that Petrosa neighborhood be able to attract a larger anchor tenant for the commercial development that is, that was slated for out there. And, I think that's been slower going than a lot of people expected, but it would be nice to see, maybe this is a year where we get some news on what's going on out there as well.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of new growth on the east side, a lot of new opportunity. And then on the west side, I know right now we're sitting in a tall line home.
Yeah, we've got, we're fortunate to represent two very quality builders out here on the west side of Bend that are building in two of the more premier neighborhoods right now. So we're sitting here in Tall Line, which is, going to be roughly 250 units or so. That will have some, they haven't started on it yet. I'm looking out here, I can see the trucks driving by, but, there's, we're about to get the first commercial building out here in Tall Line. Rumor has it that Curtis Homes will be using that as their home office. There's rumor that there may be a coffee shop going in there as well. Then, of course, you've got a park coming in, fairly large park that will be in as part of Tall Line behind here, which will be interesting to see play out. And then when we look towards Discovery West, which is where is another kind of premier hot neighborhood on the west side of Bend. We are working on phases 6 and 7 right now, which is kind of crazy to see. In fact, a lot of the kind of more premium lots that overlook Discovery West have started to sell, and that was kind of phase 5, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're out of those by the first half of this year. Strata, which a lot of people may not be aware of, was the Discovery West lots that ran up Crosby Drive. I guess technically it would be to the west of Pacific Crest Middle School and Miller Elementary.
They're looking down onto
kind of
the
looking
rim.
down into the park as well. They're kind of up there on the rim. Those lots were available to the public for the public to buy, which was very unique for Discovery West. It's not something that Discovery West typically does or that developer typically does. And it was interesting to see that nobody really took the horns. I think there was maybe one or two people that bought lots. And those recently did open up to developers, or not developers, but builders as well, which originally was not the intended use for those lots. And, we were fortunate enough to kind of look at that opportunity, and Jared Huffman and the team of Fusion Home Builders came in and we picked up, I believe, 3 lots out there, started building on those. We put the first one in escrow at the end of 2024. That was the second home, I believe, to sell right there off of Strata. It was the first builder spec home to sell. And if you drive out there now, it's full on. I mean, you've got homes. I think Ben Trend's got a couple homes going in out there. Fusion Home Builders still has a couple more homes. There's some other builders that have moved in and picked up lots. Olin Construction has a beautiful home at the end out there as well. I'm actually really surprised that one hasn't sold. It's an excellent lot, right? Kind of got a private feel with some big trees right near you. So it's interesting to see that, really kind of post-election, that area's kind of picked up and taken off. When we look at, say, phases 6 and 7, those are going to be more what I would consider to be kind of traditional Discovery West lots, in that 7 to 9,000 square foot range. Nice flat lots, which are pretty cool. The other thing I do like about that area is it's fairly close proximity to Discovery Corner, which
Right.
was another big change for this year. We had Discovery Corner open up this fall. And so for those of you who don't know what Discovery Corner is, in that neighborhood of Discovery West, there's a little kind of neighborhood district that was kind of built out to be a bit of a gathering space.
It's a little plaza.
Yeah, it's like a plaza, right?
There's
You got
a Sparrow
beautiful
going in there.
fire pit. You've got Sparrow going in. There's a wine bar that's going in. You've got an esthetician in there. So it's kind of cool to see that area come to life. And those new phases, that 6 and 7, they're kind of in a sweet spot where they're just a short distance to that plaza and Discovery Corner, but they're also far enough away that when you want to go home and kind of get out of the mix, you can get out of the mix, right?
So it's fair to say that there's still a good amount of building going on out there, and then beyond that as well, there's a lot of opportunity, especially like reaching out to your brokers and getting an understanding for what's coming soon, because there's going to be pre-sale opportunity.
Yeah, I think in any of these new construction areas that we're talking about, I mean, if we're talking, kind of where we fit in as a team, kind of Westside spec build new construction. Yeah, if I were a buyer out there right now, or I was an agent representing a buyer in our market, I would not be relying on what is on Zillow and what is on the MLS to understand what's going on in these neighborhoods. These are neighborhoods where you have to be boots on the ground, calling agents, driving through and looking around, because a lot of these properties, especially the highly coveted lots, they go quickly, and they don't necessarily make it that far in the process.
And then I think part of it too that we saw is, we had homes that would be available as an open house, but then as soon as it goes pending, right, we're not able to take people through them necessarily. And so like to get in and see the quality of a build while there is an opportunity, and then maybe start walking lots or view what else is under construction, I think that's something that people should take advantage of as well.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, right? And now is really a good time to be doing that, kind of early spring, because there is some standing inventory out in Discovery West. There is a little bit of standing inventory right now here in Tall Line, and once those go, you can't necessarily get in to take a look. So you're right. I mean, now is the time to be cruising these neighborhoods, talking to your brokers, getting inside these homes that are open and active before they do sell, and they're no longer accessible. Yeah.
Well, Ryan, really appreciate you going over all the differences with what's coming up in 2025 and how, everything from interest rates to available inventory and value of homes are going to affect people who are looking at hopping in as buyers and sellers in the upcoming market. If I missed anything, please let me know.
Yeah, no, I think we covered it. I mean, I'm pretty excited for this year. I think, it's not going to be obviously a crazy year in terms of what we saw from, really pre-pandemic, kind of, I would say 2015 to 2019, as well as through the pandemic. But I think what is unique about this year for both buyers and sellers is I think there just will be more activity in general. For buyers, I think that's big opportunity, because if there is more activity and we do see inventories, at similar elevations to last year, just similar levels to last year, that does present buyers the opportunity to shop a little bit more.
Sure.
For buyers, I think, because when you're talking about both sides of the market right now, I think buyers are the ones that probably are struggling the most to figure out with what's going on. And one of the things that I always think about is right now, even though we talked about how the market is picking up, inventories are low right now. Once we get into the meat of the season, there's going to be more inventory, right? And if I think about what buyers were faced kind of pre-pandemic, and definitely as we went into the pandemic, they were faced with having to make insanely quick decisions on what homes they were going to purchase. If you purchased in the pandemic, you were having to waive your home inspection, you were having to pay 10% over list price, you were having to waive your right to an appraisal on a property, and you were lucky if you even stepped foot in the home, right? Now, yes, mortgage rates are high, that puts financial pressure on buyers, but the great thing for buyers right now is you can take a look around, you can go tour homes, you can make sure there's time to do your own due diligence. And I think the other thing which you and I were talking about a little bit a couple days ago is that we've been in this range-bound price of about a median sales price of 750K now since May of 2022, maybe April of 2022, right? And at that point, that's when we saw rates come up. And a lot of people did say, hey, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and wait, right? There's demand on the sidelines. There's buyers sitting on the sidelines and waiting. And it's always scary when you jump in. But I look at the folks that took that risk, you know, let's say 2 years ago or maybe even a year and a half ago, and they did jump in compared to someone who maybe continued to rent. And I feel like those that did take that risk are probably going to be, you know, a bit ahead of the game in the long run, right? Instead of, you know, if you've been renting in Bend, I'm going to guess your median rent right now in Bend is probably somewhere north of $2,000 a month. So we'll just roughly say that's $24K a year. You know, if you've rented the last 2 years instead of trying to jump into the market, you know, cash-wise, you've gone through quite a bit of cash, where for those folks that did take the risk, they did buy, they're at least starting to whittle down and pay some of that mortgage down and build a little bit of equity. Plus, they have a little bit of stability that they're not going to be hit with rent increases, et cetera. They're in their own homes. And so I think as we look to, once again, this opportunity where there's more inventory out there in 2025, I think it does present some great opportunities for buyers, even though interest rates are incredibly high.
So if you can, you know, it's always a question of affordability, but if you can, it could be a good time with the amount of inventory that's
yeah, it's affordability, right? And I feel like timing the market, you know, for me, having done this for a decade now, timing the market versus not timing, I think really it comes down to if the affordability is there and you feel good, it's probably better to get in sooner than to continue to rent, especially for those that are renting. Sure. So yeah, I'm excited for this year. It's going to be great to see what happens.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So thanks for watching along with us. And Ryan, thank you for all your insight, and looking forward to what 2025 has ahead of us.
Yeah, that's great. That was awesome. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Take care.